this morning and trying out the new Instagram badges. I'm not sure exactly how they work. I just got a notification that I'm up for the trial of Instagram live badges. So if anybody wants to try that out, feel free. So I see we have a couple questions coming in. Let me scroll and see who was the first one. Mental concept, coming out of the back and entering the middle. So pretty much just find something that's repeatable. That's kind of the concept for me that works. Is everybody will be a little bit different. Mine is mostly just make it repeatable and do the same thing that I've rehearsed. And so a lot of that is drills and easy throws, and then trying to have that happen when it counts in the meet. And Megan Clark says, do I have any tips or tricks? And I do not. I get that question a lot, and I do not have really any tricks for shot put. It's just a lot of hard work and and a lot of throws. So, okay, here we go. We got a lot of questions. So first one. So what was my PR senior year of high school? So I threw 77 feet 2 inches with the 12-pound shot. And then I threw 237.7 in the discus with 1.6 kilo and 19 meters 48, I believe it was, 63.10-ish with a 16-pound. And that was probably my best throw for me. I know Jordan Geis came in later and threw farther, but I felt like for my build and strength levels, that was a much better throw, 63.10 or 11 with the 16 than my 77.2 for me. And dang, we got a lot of questions. Let's see. Farthest throw I've had in practice. So yeah, if you guys have questions, I think there's a way to submit it through the Q&A section. I'm not entirely sure. But farthest throw in practice that's a tough one to answer because I throw a lot of different weights. And so I threw, probably my most outstanding throw was 20 meters 20 with a 20-pound. That one's definitely, I feel like, for me, the best throw. And the farthest I've thrown recently would be 24.15 with a 15-pound. So I'm going to keep my 16-pound top secret. Hopefully I can improve on that 23.37. I will say I have thrown a little bit farther in practice, but I feel like some of my bigger throws have been with different weights than the 16-pound. And all right, the questions are rolling in. And did I ever glide? So yeah, so I'm starting to figure out how this works. So if you guys have a question, put it in the Q&A section, and then I can see what's the most upvoted question in that section, so I can kind of get to the questions that you guys want me to answer the most, because we have a lot rolling in, but I'll try and get to the ones at the top. So did I ever glide is the next top one. And so yes, I did glide. I threw with the glide starting out. That's the technique I started with, and I stuck with that for all the way from 6th, 7th, 8th grade, freshman, sophomore, junior year. So I threw the glide for quite a while, and I felt like I had a good understanding of it. And technically, I was really proud of my glide technique. I worked on it a lot, and I feel like a lot of people think that it's simple, and I can really tell you as a former glider that it's not. It's not quite as technical as the spin, but it's definitely a lot more than people realize. And so that was a big part of me getting a good finish on the shot. And I think glide is still a relevant technique, especially some of these taller, more athletic kids that might not be quite as strong. The glide, it's easier to use your leverage. And if you don't have quite as much time to throw, say you're a football player or a basketball player and you come out and you want to throw, I would definitely recommend that they glide before they go in and try to learn the spin. So the glide is a great learning tool, and you can still throw really far with a glide. I threw in high school over 70 feet. In training, my PR was 72 feet before I got hurt going into my senior year. And so I have no sound. I don't know why I have no sound. All right, can y'all hear me now? Somebody just comment. So some people can hear me. Okay. All right, cool. Perfect. I was getting a bunch of comments that I had no sound. So that's about the glide. I rambled a little bit on that. And biggest fish I ever caught. All right, I'll take it that route. For those people that don't know, I love fishing, and that's my favorite hobby that I do in a lot of my free time. I was out fishing 2 days ago. And so biggest fish I ever caught would be probably a sturgeon. So I grew up in Oregon, and we have giant sturgeon there in the Columbia River. And the biggest one I caught was 11 feet and would have been over 600 pounds. And so they're almost 80, 90 years old. And so you can't keep them. You have to let them go. But that's definitely the biggest fish I caught. Biggest bass I've ever caught was in Austin, Texas. It's a great place to bass fish. And I was lucky enough to catch a 13-pound bass there. And caught some 10-pound bass in San Diego. Have not got one in Arkansas yet. My biggest in Arkansas is a 9.3-pound bass. And so I'm hoping for that double-digit bass here in Arkansas. But yeah, so I'm competitive in bass fishing just like in throwing. I have all my PBs for bass fishing and fishing in tournaments as well. So it's definitely a hobby of mine. And let's move on. Let's see, next question. So why did I choose shot and not discus? And so a little bit for me, combination of two things. So number one is in 2016, I only had an indoor eligibility with the University of Texas. I had redshirted indoors, but not outdoors. So in 2016, I only had an indoor. And so for those people that know the NCAA system, there's only shot and weight. I'm not really a weight throw guy. So I threw the shot indoors and started to throw outdoors a little bit. That's when I would start throwing discus. But I had a big breakthrough, tied the NCAA record that was Ryan Whiting's through 21.73. And that put me at a pretty competitive level internationally. And there's not a lot of time to transition from indoor season to outdoor in the Olympic trials. And looking at the list, I figured if I could throw my PR at the Olympic trials, which is kind of the goal at the time being 21.73, that would most likely make the team. And my discus throw was 63.90 going in. And if I threw a PR at the trials and threw more than 63.90, I still needed 65 meters at the time to get the Olympic standard. So I threw with shot just because I thought it would give me a better chance to make the Olympic team. And that's kind of why I have stuck with it. And shot for me, I've always had a little bit better feel for the shot. It's not easier for me, but I had less bad days. My discus, I'd have a really good day throwing and then a really bad day. And then with shot, just day in and day out, I tend to have more consistency and just a better feeling for the throw. And let's see. So what lifts helped me in high school discus? So as far as lifting in high school, it varies a lot individual to individual. You have some kids that have been lifting for years at that point and some kids that are just starting to lift. And so high school discus, I would say the main thing is work on throwing and don't get too involved in the weight room. It's easier to work on technique and develop a feel before you're just killing yourself in the weight room. So if you want to lift, that's great, but really kind of measure it out and don't do too much. I would say just do some Olympic lifts, more work on technique in the Olympic lifts as well. They're a technical event or a technical movement, and you can get injured if you don't do it well. So learn to lift right in high school is the main thing. And so cleans or snatches, both are really good. And bench and squat are kind of the primaries that you need to focus on. There's some auxiliary lifts you can do a little bit of just to stay healthy, like back hypers, make sure you do some core and stuff, but just focus on really those lifts. And it could be as simple as when I was in high school, I did like 5 sets of 5, and then before the season, and then in the season I did 5 sets of 3. And one day I would do an Olympic lift, and then I would do bench, and then I would do a squat. And so that was really a simple program and really straightforward. But it worked for me, and I was a very technical thrower. Wasn't that strong, and I wasn't that heavy. By my senior year, I was 6'7", but I only weighed 220 pounds, so 100 kilos. So that's pretty skinny for a discus thrower. And but I was really technique oriented, and I was proud of my technique. And so that was kind of a key to success. So we got some birds going crazy back here. Biggest fish, I already answered that one. 600-pound sturgeon. Have I ever had a mental block? And yeah, so that's any athlete, I feel like at any level at some point has had some type of mental block. It varies a lot, but I have definitely have had mental blocks, and almost more than a block. I would say it's like a slump. You have days that you just can't seem to throw the shot far. You can't seem to do whatever you want to do well, and you can, and you're able to, but you just can't seem to do it on the day of. And so the main thing that I've found for getting out of slumps or mental blocks is try to do something right. So if I'm having a really bad day and it's like I can't do anything right, I can't throw well, everything's struggling, I might have been going for not even just one practice but a whole week or two, try to do something right. So I might just go back to the simplest stand throw or the simplest drill, and then the only thing I'm going to focus on is doing that one thing right. And that's the key to kind of pulling yourself out of that, is do one thing right, and then once you do one, even if it's the simplest thing right, it's a lot easier to do that next thing right, and then keep building on that to kind of get yourself out of that slump. All right, next question. So PRs as a freshman in high school. So as a freshman in high school, I was playing a lot of basketball, and I was really, really skinny. So I was 6'2"-ish, so I was tall, but I was 170 pounds. So I was built more like a high jumper or a long jumper than I was like a thrower. And so I actually did triple jump as well, jumped 43 feet in the triple. So a pretty respectable mark for a triple jumper. Shot, I threw 60 feet 2 inches at the state meet. My goal was to get 60 feet, so I got that. And my goal was 180 feet in the discus, and I threw 180 feet 3 inches. And so I set my goals really high, because I started the season out, I think I threw 160 in the discus and 53 in the shot. And so throughout the season, I progressed a lot. And at that point in my life, 15 years old, you're growing a lot, your body's developing a lot. So I felt like I set my goals high, and I was just a goofy, tall, gangly kid. And so it was a lot easier to improve than it is now, just because I'm throwing at a much higher level now. And let's see. How do you calm your nerves going into a big competition? So that's a great question. And it definitely is something that is a little bit different for each person. So for what works for me is, before the competition even happens, and I'm talking weeks or months in advance, it all starts in training. So it's really easy to go into a big competition, like for me at the trials, if you've done everything you can to prepare. So if you've done everything you can to the best of your ability, if your sleep has been good, your nutrition's been good, your training's been good, and you've been really dedicated, if you have done everything right going into the big meet, it makes it a lot easier to perform well, because you can go in knowing I couldn't have done anything better. So that's my number one key to calming my nerves, is do everything you can going in, and then you can have a really just clear mind and know, hey, I did everything to the best of my ability to get ready. So no matter what happens, I couldn't have done better. And that makes it a lot easier to perform well. And so should I throw a heavier shot in practice than the competition weight? And in general, I would say yes, but up to a point. So heavy shots can be good, just like light shots can be good. I think for younger athletes, so a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I think light shots are more beneficial to younger athletes. And the main reason is, if you want to throw far, you have to throw far. And it's a lot easier to do that with the light ball. So say you're a 50-foot shot putter and you want to throw 55. The key to throwing 55 is feeling what that feels like. And so if you're throwing a 12-pound shot in high school, it might be going down to a 10-pound and throwing 55 repeatedly, and then you get used to that new feeling. And so that's kind of what I think a lot of younger athletes underutilize is the light ball. So obviously you want to throw the competition weight and be comfortable with that. Heavy can be a good training tool. I would say use that earlier in the season when you want to build. It's great for building specific strength, and it makes the comp ball feel lighter, but it also doesn't necessarily make you throw that much farther later in the season when you're trying to work more on speed and being more athletic. So if you're going to use the comp ball, I would say use it limited. Use it on the simpler movement. So it might be the just fronts, flips, or stand throws, or maybe work on it on full. But as I get closer to full, I use closer to the light ball. So I'll do just wrist flips and stands with up to a 24. But as soon as I start to put in some movement into it, I don't go heavier than a 20. And even that, I stopped throwing the 20 at January 1st. So I spent very little time relative to the season throwing the heavy ball. So I would say for you younger kids, really focus on the light ball and learn to throw far before you start trying to throw the heavy ball and develop more of that specific strength. And next top question is, have you ever thought about trying out for the NFL? So a little bit. I've had some interest. When I was at Texas in school, they definitely asked me to play a few times. And even post-collegiately, I've had a little bit of interest from the NFL, just offers saying, hey, if you want to come try out, we'd love to have you. Because obviously I have a good build for football. 6'7", I'm about 325 right now. And, I hit those bench press reps at 225 pounds. I think I did 40-something a couple of years ago, the one day I tried it. So maybe we could get 50 now. Maybe even a few more than that. So I have good combine numbers, 36-inch vertical, and I got right around 11 foot standing broad. So pretty good for kind of being on the heavier side. And let's see, biggest failure that I learned from, that's a great question. And I would say the biggest failure for me, I felt like, was in 2017 World Championships. That was just a difficult meet. I felt like I didn't perform well on the day, except for the one throw that I had that was ruled a foul. But I was in a huge slump at that point. I was going into practice. Like 1 month before, I felt like every practice I could go out and throw hard and throw 22 meters. And 2 weeks before, I just lost the feeling for my throw. I couldn't turn out of the back. I felt like I was off balance. I felt like I had no timing. And I was struggling to throw 20 meters going into that comp. So it was just, I was in a slump, and it was especially frustrating because I felt like I was in the best shape of my life up to that point. I was at PRs in the weight room. My body weight was at the heaviest it had been, but I still felt athletic. I just could not feel to throw the ball. And so that was the most frustrating thing. And so that was definitely I felt like the biggest failure. But the frustrating thing was that I prepared as best I could. So although it didn't perform at all like I wanted to, I felt like I was in phenomenal shape to throw really far. It's still the biggest failure of my career, but I prepared as best I could. All the pieces were there, that just couldn't get it to come together that week or two before, and couldn't get to come together in that meet as well. So that's the answer to that one. Have I ever thrown the hammer? Not really. Like 2 or 3 times I've just picked it up, and I'm not talking even a practice, like I'm talking 2 or 3 throws ever. Just picked it up and did some winds. So I actually do coach the hammer somewhat, and I've definitely learned a lot about it in the last 5 or 6 years. Being at the Olympic Training Center was a great opportunity to see some big name throwers train. Seen a lot of 80-meter throws, both in training and seen a few in meets. So I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the hammer, but I haven't thrown it. I messed around a little bit this past indoor throwing the weight, just for fun. Mostly have to beat up on the college kids every once in a while to make sure that their heads don't get too big. And let's see what else we got. So yeah, again, a lot of questions about high school lifting, and I'll just touch on that again. Focus on throwing. You're a thrower before you're a lifter, but if you are gonna lift, make sure it's with good technique, and you don't need to go crazy. So just focus on cleans or snatch. Get an Olympic lift that you like. Both of them are good. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. That's just personal preference. And then squats and bench. And the other thing I forgot to mention earlier is pull-ups. I feel like pull-ups are the most undertrained thing, both at any level, but especially high school. You use your lats for so much, both in the weight room and in the throw. The lat is a huge posterior chain muscle that really stabilizes and helps on your block and helps on the pull in shot, discus, and javelin. And hammer throwers, I think the hammer throwers really undertrain the lats as well. So pull-ups, I feel like any good thrower should be able to knock out 10 pull-ups easy, even if you're 350 pounds. And so I'll work up to 2 45-pound plates, so 90 pounds in addition. So I'm about 410, and I can do 5 pull-ups with that. Or I'm 410 in total weight if I have 90 pounds on. So I feel like that's a key that's undertrained is pull-ups. But yeah, Olympic lift, bench, squat, and pull-ups. And personally, I like front squat at any level. Front squat more than back squat. When the weight's in front of you and on a front rack, hands on the bar right here, it's a much more athletic movement than a back squat is. Back squat's great for building size and getting just general strength. But for applicable and athletic functional movement, a front squat tends to be better for almost all athletes. And let's see what other questions we got. High school time. So advice for a high schooler that's trying to go to college, another great question. And I feel like the one thing that not a lot of athletes realize is how important the academic piece is. And so I know a lot of you guys have heard over and over again of like, oh, you're a student athlete, being a student comes first, and that's true. But what a lot of athletes don't realize is that coaches do not want academic problems. So if you can just take care of what you need to do in the classroom, it really sets you up well to be a student athlete and to get recruited. And I can tell you now as a volunteer coach that the last thing you want is academic trouble when you're recruiting a kid. And so it makes it so much more difficult to be a high-level recruit if you have trouble in the classroom. So do what you need to do with your GPA, so get good grades, and study for that ACT or SAT test. Those help a lot to get through the NCAA clearinghouse process. And but mostly, the main thing, you're still going to college to get a degree. So get that degree if you do go to college. And that's, it's 4 years of your life, but that degree will help you way longer than that. And so if you're lucky as a high schooler, you can throw for 4 more years. And if you're really lucky, you can be professional. And that, I'm talking 1/10 of a percent of athletes will throw professionally. And even that, most athletes won't make it 4 years, like through the next Olympic cycle. So at best, you're throwing for 4 years, maybe 8 years if you're in high school right now, but your degree is going to impact the rest of your life. And so it'll help you just get the job you want, be a more functional member of your community, and contribute more to society. So I think that's something that a lot of high schoolers don't realize is the timeline and really the time frame that they're looking at. And so we got a lot more questions coming in. Have I ever competed in the javelin? Yes, I have competed in the javelin. It was actually one of my best events when I was younger because I was so skinny. The shot and discus were heavy for me, and I was a good athlete and had long levers, so I threw the javelin pretty well, better than shot and discus early on. And then I started growing really fast, and javelin just kept on messing up my back. Any jav thrower can definitely testify to the damage that the javelin can do to your body. So, but I did throw the javelin. I have the Oregon State record in high school, 189 feet. So that'd be 58 meters ish. And the next year I threw close to 63 meters. So, and that's with the 800 gram as a 15 and 16-year-old. So not bad. Definitely for an event that really beat me up and I didn't spend a ton of time practicing. It was a fun event, but I definitely was beat down from it constantly. And so another good question, what taping or wrapping method do I prefer? And so I've kind of changed it changed for me throughout the years. So they changed the rule a couple of years ago that you can tape above the wrist. So before it was only below, and so now you can tape above the wrist onto the hand. And so I tape my fingers only when I throw hard. I think a key with that is you still want strong fingers. I mean, you can see my hand is pretty swollen and big. But so I usually only tape the fingers when I'm throwing hard, and that might be once a week, once every 2 weeks. And even, so you still have to be able to spread them independently. So I'm talking about just going down, pretty much from the top knuckle here, down to the base. And then I tape my wrist just with standard athletic tape, from the wrist down, and about from my wrist to a third of the way to my elbow. And over the top of that, I've been using a boxing wrap just because I go through a lot of tape. And tape is expensive, so I go through about a case of tape a month. And that's a lot of tape, and it's expensive. So the boxing wrap lets me limit it a little bit. And but once again, it's whatever works for you. I feel like a lot of athletes over tape. You want it to be firm and feel like you're strong and supporting your wrist, but you don't want it to the point that it's like crushing it and cutting off circulation, and you lose that feel of still getting a flip on the ball. A lot of guys, like, they just tape it until it's like an oven mitt and then just throw out of their palm. And I feel like that you're kind of if you lose that finesse feel, or if you have just like swelling, bruising, anything like that, you're probably taping too hard. So figure out what works for you. It's kind of a preference thing. I know athletes that have thrown at a high level with only a boxing wrap, some only tape, and some only just like a wrist support. So it's really a personal preference. Find something that supports you but lets you still move and be comfortable. And how many throws do I take a practice? So that varies a lot, from off season to in season, and then both in season early and kind of championship. And so off season, I aim for 30 to 40 fulls, and that's between stand throw. So my normal progression would be stand throws, pivots, or step throughs, wheels, whatever you want to call them, and then fulls. And I'm not a huge fan of a South African style movement, just because it's different than what the full throw is. The stand throw and the pivot are still parts of the full, but the thing with the South African is you can you generate force with that right foot out the ring, and so it makes the ring feel bigger. So for a taller guy like me, it enforces a lot of bad habits. And so I'll take 30 to 40 throws total from stands, pivots, and fulls in the off season, and it's a pretty even split at that point. So I might do 10, so it'd be 10 stands, 10 pivots, 10 to 20 fulls. And then as the season comes on, it becomes more loaded on fulls. So I might, like right now, I might do 4 stands, 5 pivots, and 10 to 15 fulls. And for a total of 20 to 25 throws. So kind of the volume goes down as the season progresses, and the focus changes. So in the fall, I'm trying to get specific strength, get stronger, throughout the throw, so I'll focus more on stands and pivots. And right now, I'm not really going to get a whole lot stronger with limited throws volume and in the championship season, but I want my fulls to really be spot on. So I'm going to focus on fulls and making sure that the fulls are at their best, because that's what I'm going to compete with in the meet. And so, yeah, so to transition a little bit, I got to wrap this up here in a little while, but what mark am I shooting for in the Olympics? A PR is the best way to put it. So I feel like I got the world record, and I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders when I got that. I didn't realize how much pressure I've been putting on myself to get that world record. But now that I have, I feel like I can just focus on myself, which is what I was trying to do the whole time. I didn't really realize how much that 23:12 world record by Randy Barnes had been weighing on me, knowing that it was possible to get it. But now that I have, I feel like I can just go out there and compete against myself, which has always been my goal. And so, yeah, going into the Olympics, the main thing is with any major championships is try to perform my best and throw a PR. And obviously, I would really like to win and repeat and bring home a gold medal for Team USA. But shooting for a PR, that I'd be beyond happy to throw a PR at the Olympics. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize is that at the majors, it's not set up to throw well in terms of maximum distance. You got to warm up an hour, 2 hours before at a separate venue, get bussed or walk over, and you sit in a holding room that's like a 12-foot by 12-foot room, maybe a little bit bigger now because of COVID and we have to spread out. But you sit in a holding room for 40 minutes, then you go out to the ring and you get 2 throws for warm up. So it's not the ideal situation. It's kind of who can do the best given non-optimal circumstances. But if I can throw a PR at the Olympics with that suboptimal preparation of warm-up track, holding room, 2 warm-up throws system, then I know I can throw even farther if I can do a local meet, stay home and train, sleep in my own bed, eat normal food, and then just roll out to a local track like University of Arkansas and throw in a meet. But yeah, so the main goal for the Olympics is going and throw a PR. Let's see. We've got, I'm just going to roll through these real quick. Greetings from Costa Rica. Thank you. I know there's been a ton of questions I'm not going to be able to get to, but I appreciate the support, guys. And so shout out to Costa Rica. Favorite thrower growing up was Ulf Timmerman. He was, I was a glider, and so I felt like the best technical glider ever. And so that's who I copied my glide after, and definitely my favorite thrower. College throwing more fun than high school throwing? I would say definitely. You have a kind of a team around you, and everybody's really passionate about it. So choose a school that you feel like you would fit in at, even if you weren't doing track, because track is going to be an hour or 2 out of your day. You're still living there, going to school 22 hours a day. So, but yeah, I would say it's definitely more fun. For sure, you're surrounded by 6 or 8 or 10 other athletes and a full-time coach that all are passionate about the throws. So I would definitely say it's more fun. And going to college, biggest difference between the 12-pound and 16-pound is it's heavier. That's the biggest thing. It's 4 pounds. Doesn't seem like that much, but it definitely is a huge difference going from the 12 to the 16. Not to scare you or freak you out or anything, but just know that it's going to take some adjusting. So you're going from a high school weight. I feel like for a 12-pound fits a senior in high school pretty well, where a 16-pound does not fit a freshman in college. You're 1 year older, but I didn't feel like I could handle the 16-pound well until really 2016, and so that took me 5 years to really feel like I could adjust to it. So cut yourself some slack. It's going to be heavy. Bridge that gap with a lot of 6K, 13.2 pound, 14-pound shots, and don't worry about throwing the 16-pound far right away. Give yourself some time to grow and adjust to it. And all right, one last question. Who's winning the NBA Finals? Shoot, that is a good one to end on. I don't know. I like the Bucks with Giannis are pretty good, but I do think Phoenix is playing better basketball right now. I love Chris Paul. I feel like he's a passionate guy, and I feel like he is in it for his teammates and plays for the right reasons. Hard worker, dedicated, and I really want to see him win an NBA Finals, so I'm going to go with Phoenix Suns. But thanks, guys, for the support. I wish I could have gotten to all your questions. I'm going to try and do this again for the next, I don't know, block of time, maybe once a week from now till Tokyo. Help grow the sport a little bit and bring some more attention to the shot put and track and field as we get ready for the Tokyo Olympics. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I will check back with y'all here later on this week. All right.